Hi friends, in this video we will understand what is a property source, what are all the common property sources we use generally in Spring application, and how can we access those properties from the property sources. So what is a property source? Property source is nothing but a location or a place where we get the configuration properties. That means we define the configuration properties, right? And we can customize the behavior of the application using these configuration properties, right? So without requiring the code changes. And this the concept we already know before Spring. Also in normal Java standalone or web applications we already used property sources, right? We defined property files, we used environment variables, and we used JVM parameters in configuring the application, right? Yes. So normally these properties include settings such as database connection settings, that can be server port numbers, logging levels, and so many configuration parameters we use, right? So normally the commonly used property sources, if we discuss, that we need to discuss about these four: system environment variables, JVM properties, and the property files located on class path, and the properties file located on file system, right? So system environment variables means we know, right? So normally every operating system has, that can be Windows or Linux or Ubuntu, I mean any operating system if you take, we will have environment variables, right? So that is one property source we can say. If we take our own Windows, here you can see, right, we have user variables and system variables. So here we have key value pairs, so we can configure our application related settings in this environment variables, right? So this is one property source. So environment variables is nothing but one property source, right? The source where we configure our properties. So that's why we call it as property source. And the other one is JVM properties. So JVM properties are nothing but what? If you go to the IDE, so let's say we can see in IDE, if you go to the run configurations, we pass the VM arguments. These VM arguments are nothing but what? JVM parameters, right? We can customize our JVM functionality using these VM arguments, right? So we can normally we use this for some purposes, like sometimes we configure the heap size also here, right? Yes. So this is one more property source. So VM arguments, that means JVM parameters are also one more property source. And other than this, if you go to property, let's say properties files, let's say here in the resources folder I have defined one properties file. That means I have created one properties file, app.properties. If you see this, here also we have properties, email.host, email.port. I have configured this. I will be using this in our application there normally, right? So max users I can configure. That means max users I can use for this app. That means these 1000 users only we can allow to log into this application, and the default language of this application is English. So like this we can define some settings, right? So this is a property file basically. So we define property files, right? So this is one property source, right, where we define key value pairs. So if you go to our local system, let's say in local system also, that means in my local machine also, I have a folder called config. In this also I have a couple of property files. So this is in file system. So in file system I have again property files, and where I have configured some stuff like some key value pairs. I will be using this in our application normally, right? So this is a property file located on file system, right? So these are the different types commonly used property sources, we can say. Okay. So these two, system environment variables and JVM properties, normally Spring will automatically load those properties. That means we don't need to do anything. Just Spring will load these key value pairs into the memory. When it will load? During the application context creation only. That means during the initialization of application context, it will just load these key value pairs defined in these two property sources into the memory, and we can directly access them. How can we access them? We will see. Okay, and these properties files located on class path and on file system, these we should configure. How we do? Using property source annotation or property sources annotation. So property sources is a plural form of property source. These property sources we use for loading multiple files, that means multiple property sources. That means if you want to load multiple files into the Spring application, then we use property sources. Okay, for a single file we can use property source. So we need to programmatically configure the property files using this property source annotation. Then Spring will scan this, Spring will load the files into the system, that means into the application. Okay, so we will see this. Okay, so how can we access the properties from the property sources? So we have three ways of accessing the properties. The first one is using environment abstraction, the second one is @value annotation, and the third one is using this syntax $curly braces syntax. So we will see one by one. Okay, so first we will see using environment abstraction. So when we say environment abstraction, environment is nothing but basically an interface provided by Spring Framework. And what will happen is when we create the application context, what will happen is it will actually load all the properties from different property sources, and all it will inject into the environment object. That means in the environment object, that means the instance of this environment type will have all the properties available. So whatever we want, if we want a particular property value, then simply we can call get property on the environment object. So let's say I want db.url, which is a key. So the value will be something, right? The value I can get by calling this get property method and by passing the key as an argument to this get property method. So once we have environment object, we can get any property which is loaded into the application. Okay, and also this is one way. If you have application context, you can get the environment. And the other way is, let's say you want to inject environment object into one Spring component. So here also this is possible. I can use auto void. Spring will automatically inject the environment object. So using the environment object, again I can get different properties like this. Here I am getting three different objects: db.url, db.username, db.password. Okay, so this is how we can use the environment object. Okay, so environment object purpose is not only resolving properties, but also we have some other purpose also. We will see that in future, but for now understand that we can get the properties using the environment object also. So this is called environment abstraction. So we don't worry about what is happening inside the environment, but we know how to get the properties. Okay, this one we will see practically now. Let's dive into the IDE. I'll close this. So I have an application configuration class. This is an empty class, and for now this is not required anymore. For now see here what we are doing. Here I am creating an application context, but I am not passing any configuration class here, right? So it is just an empty, right, empty arguments. That means I am not passing anything here. So this is annotation config application context. So what we can do now, I can get the environment object, right? Let's try this. Environment env, let's say, equals to, I can get from the application context, right? Application context dot, we have a get environment method. You can call this method. When you call get environment method, it will directly return the environment object. So basically environment is an interface. Okay? Basically environment is an interface, but get environment will give the instance for the environment type. Okay, now what you want to see. So I have the environment variables, right? this one of these environment variables I want to read. Okay, so let's say I want to read Java home. Okay, we'll see this. So I want to read and I want to print that. Okay, so env dot get property. So what is that? Java home. So I didn't do anything, right? I have not configured in the Spring application, but by default Spring is reading our machine's environment variables. Wherever you deploy this Spring application, if you deploy this Spring application in Linux environment variables, Spring will load. Okay, that's the beauty of the Spring. Okay, let's run this. Yes, I got the Java home path. Okay, so using environment object I am able to read the system variables or user variables. Okay, so this is one, and the other one is what? JVM parameters, right? In the run configurations, let's say I want to pass something. Let's say -d environment equals to local. So environment is the key here for JVM parameter, right? So this environment also, the value also I can read. Can we do that? Yes. As a second statement here I am passing environment. So we should get the value, right? That is local, right? I am getting right? Yes. So by default, what is the conclusion for this? By default, system environment variables and JVM parameters, Spring is loading. So we are not doing anything for that, right? Okay, so I'm using like this, and also I want to inject environment object into one component, and then I want to access those properties. That example also can we see? Yes. So for that, what I want to do is I will create one class for that. Let's say I'll create one class here. Let's say demo. Okay, demo service. Okay, so this class is basically a component, Spring component. Okay, component, and here I want to demo. What I want to demo? I want to read properties from two different property sources. One is from system environments, one is from JVM parameters. So private string, let's say Java home, I want to read from system environment variables. And but before this environment we need, right? So private environment. Okay, so what I can do here, I have to inject, right? So auto void. So Spring will automatically inject the environment object here, and I want to expose two methods to just to read the values. Okay, public string get Java home. See, this is just for demonstration purpose. Okay, return environment dot get property Java home. Done, right? Next, similarly public string, what I want to get local environment or get environment, I can say. Okay, so return this, I can copy, right? So Java home, here what I can give? Environment. So these two I am exposing. So in order to create object for that, what I have to do? I need to create either Java configuration I have to do, otherwise annotation based configuration, right? So I will add component scan. Okay, so what it will do, it will scan, right? So what we can do next is this application configuration we need to pass here so that it will scan, right? Perfect. Now what we need to get? Okay, I will just comment out this. This is done, right? So instead of getting the environment here, so what we can do, we can get the user service, sorry, demo service equals to application context dot get bean demo service dot class, right? So here I want to print those values. Okay, one from system variables, that is demo service dot get Java home. This is one. The other one is what? Get environment. So what I am doing, I am actually injecting environment object into the demo service using @auto annotation. Spring will do the injection anyway, dependency injection. Then I am able to read the system environment variable and JVM parameter, right? This is other way of doing. Okay, let's run it. We are getting some errors, right? What are the errors? Error creating bean with name, internal async annotation processor defined in class path resource something blah blah blah. Enable async annotation metadata was not injected. Why that is required? We will see. So we are using component scan. Directly we are doing like this. Okay, are we using configuration? We are not using. Let's add configuration. Okay, now we will run it again. Again we are getting the same error, right? Java 11, here it is failing basically, right? Yes. So what else is required? Why it is failing? So is it not component scanning is not doing the component scan? Let's add base package. Okay, base package is, we have to scan from Spring demo, right? Spring demo in double quotes we need to give, right? Now see, the issue is resolved. What do you understand from this? So whenever we use component scan, we need to also mention the base package, right? Normal in Spring, but in Spring Boot, this component scan, even though we don't use it, the Spring Boot application annotation will take care of it. Anyway, that we will see in Spring Boot. So we need to use the component scan package. That's the conclusion. So we added configuration. Is this required? Let's remove this. Okay, and let's run it. So configuration is optional here, right? Yes. Now, so we are able to access system environment variable and JVM parameter. So this is what we need to understand. So this is how we access properties from environment abstraction. Okay, yeah, so we understood, right? Using environment object we can get we can access the properties from system environment variables and JVM parameters. It's clear. Okay, now let's move to the other one, that is @value annotation. So using the @value annotation, directly we can access the property. So no need to get the environment object to access the property. Directly we can access the property using the @value annotation. It is straightforward. If you observe the syntax, we have to, in the double quotes, we need to follow a special syntax called $curly braces. So if you follow like this, inside the curly braces you can directly give the property key, that is the property name, then the value will come automatically into the variable. Okay, so we will see it practically. Let's get into the IDE. Okay, so we are good with the environment, right? So now what we will do is we will use the value. So @value, where we have to use inside the class. Here we need, instead of injecting the environment directly, we can inject the, what we can inject directly, we can inject the value directly. Let's say I want Java home. So Java home, first what I am getting the environment object, and from the environment I am getting the Java home, right? But directly I can get the Java home from the system. How? So here, without using environment, I will do that. Okay, simple. I will remove this, or I will comment it out. I will remove it for simplicity. Okay, remove it, and what I will do is I will define a variable for Java home, and I will define a variable for environment. Environment means what? That that environment we configured in the JVM parameters, right? Yeah. So we will use @value annotation here in the double quotes using this syntax, dollar and curly braces syntax. So Java home, what is the Java home name? This is how it was defined in the system variables, right? And this one, this is environment. This is from where it will read it, this one from JVM parameter, right? Yeah. So directly I can return this value here, and this one directly I can return here, semicolon, semicolon. That's it. So here what we are avoiding, we are completely avoiding the environment object, right? Using the value annotation, directly we can access the properties. These are directly available in the application context. So application context will inject these values. Okay, let's run it and see. Yes, the same outputs we got, right? Yes. So this is the beauty of @value annotation. It's very important to understand. Okay, the next one is this syntax, dollar curly brace syntax. This we already covered in the value annotation, but also we can use this in other places also, we will see. So if you see this, this is @property source. We will discuss this to load the properties, but what will happen is eventually, from if you want to use the environment variables here inside the double quotes or inside the properties, you can use this. How we can change it is, if you see this, using this syntax, using this dollar curly brace syntax, we can directly access the property. Let's say config location is one property defined in the environment variables. That config location directly I can give like this. So it will automatically replace this config location with its value like this. So this is beauty. So this we will see it practically after discussing @property source annotation, but without this also we can use. How we can use, we will see. Let's say I have system properties. If you see this, I have max users. This max users has the value of 2000, and I have one more variable called max users 2, and it is actually using dollar curly brace max users, right? This is actually a value of the property. This value of the property is using dollar curly brace max users. So what Spring will do is, Spring will automatically replace this dollar max whenever we use inside dollar inside this syntax, whatever, if we use the property key, property name, then it will automatically replace this whole with this value called 2000. Can we see it practically? Yes. This is the power of the dollar curly brace syntax. Okay. So for now what I will do is I will remove this all. Okay, we will get the from environment, we will get it. So here we have max users, right? Normally max users we have, right? Max users value, how much we defined? 2000, right? Let's run it. So 2000, right? So if I replace this with max users 2, So actually in the system variables, if you observe, max users to value is this dollar curly brace max users. Max users value is 2000 here, right? So we should get what? 2000 we have to get. Yes, 2000. So this is the power of the syntax, dollar curly brace syntax. Okay, this is what we need to use. This is how we need to understand, and we will see more in property sources also. Like in properties file also, we can use the same syntax. We will understand that one as well. If you see this, here we can use like this, and also in the properties file also we can use. Let's say in the properties file, I want to use this property, that is max users property from the environment variables. I can happily in the value. Actually here we need to provide the value, right? Instead of providing the value, we can provide a dynamic value like this, dollar curly brace syntax. This will be more helpful if you want to store the property values in somewhere in the environment variables or in other properties, or one property I want to use commonly across all the other properties files. So in such cases we can define like this. So this is the power of this syntax. Okay. So next what we have to understand is @property source. So this is very important. Why we use this? To load the files from class path and the file system, right? So let's say I have defined one properties file, app.properties. I want to load this. So how can we load this? Simple. On the configuration class, we have to use the @property source annotation, and inside double quotes we need to give the properties file name. That's it. Spring will automatically load this properties file, and the key value pairs will be available to us in the Spring application. Or so by default, if we don't mention anything, like if you just give the file name, by default it will be class path. So by default it will search this app.properties in the class path. Okay, this is what we need to understand. So you can also optionally give class path like this, class path colon. For readability purpose, you can mention, okay, I am searching this app.properties, I am loading this one from the class path. If you don't mention, by default it will take from the class path only. Okay, this is loading the properties file from the class path. So the other one is loading from file system, that is from our local machine or from Linux server, somewhere in the hard drive. Okay, so for example, I placed this config dbconfig.properties in my local D drive. So this one I want to load. How can we do it? So the same syntax, but here instead of class path we will give file colon, that's it, and after colon we will give the path of the file along with the file name. Total path we will give like this. So this way we can load the properties file from the file system. Okay, these are the two ways. Okay, let's dive into the IDE to see it practically. Okay, so I have what I have here. I have app.properties, right, here in the class path. So I have defined some property key value pairs here. I want to read them. Okay, can we read them? Yes. So using using environment, I can directly read. Let's say I have what I have here. Let's say max users I can read. Otherwise email.host, anything should be fine. Email host if is take. Will it give the value? Because we are not using @property source, right? It won't give, because it is that's why it is returning the null value here. So for to load this properties file, what we have to do? We have to go to the application configuration, and here what we need to do? We need to give property source annotation here, and in double quotes we need to give the properties file name. By default class path only it will consider, right? Now we will run and see. Yes, we got the value, that is smtp.example.com. So this is how we can read the properties from the properties file located at class path. If you want to read it from the file system, simple, right? What we can do is from the file system, right? So I need to use file colon config db config. That's it. This is what I already have. See, in d:\config, that means in the config folder I have db_config.properties. What I have in this is I have db properties, db.url, db.username, db.password. So I want to read db.url. So I will read that. Okay, here email host, let it be here db.url. I will read from local file system. I am getting this value from local file system. Yes, I am getting it. This is after getting the environment object. If you want to inject this directly into demo service, let's say here directly, can we do that? Happily we can do that. Let's say here I want to load email host. Here I want to inject db url. Okay, so here get email host, here get db url. So email host I want to return, and here db url I want to return. So email host means what is the property? Email dot host, right? Email dot host. And what is this? db dot url. This way also we can get from directly from demo service, right? Demo service equals to application context dot get bean demo service dot class, right? Again we can print the values and see are they injected or not using the value annotation. Get db url. So this one we will change. Okay, get email host. So 2 times you have to get. This is for 1 time because of these 2 statements, the second time because of these 2 statements. Yes, we are getting right. smtp example.com and this one. So this is how we also access properties from properties sources located at class path and also located at file system. So this is the beauty of @property source annotation, right? And one more thing what we observed is these two we can combine into one property sources annotation. How can we do it? That's what property sources. We have a plural form, right? What we can do is like this. This is the syntax. Comma like this. Perfect. This also will work without any doubt. Yes, it's working, right? Yes. So we can also combine all these properties into one property sources annotation. This is the plural form of property source. So we can define multiple property sources inside one single property sources annotation like this. Okay, this is valid. Okay. So next slide is that one only, using @property sources annotation. So here we can combine these two into one property sources annotation. Okay. And after understanding this, I want to give one more thing here. If you have a common property, let's say in app.properties we have one common property, that means one property key that is same as other property in dbconfig.properties. What will happen is it will prioritize the second one which is loaded later. It will replace the first one. Okay, that's what you need to just remember. Okay, let's say one property I have defined in app.properties, let's say key1. The same key1 I defined here, so which will be given priority? The key1 defined in the second property file which is being loaded later. So this will load in the serial order. So this file will be loaded first, then this file will be loaded. Okay, thus the properties which are loaded in the second file will be replacing the first properties file if they have common properties. Okay, this is what we need to understand. Okay, yeah. So one more thing I want to show you. In app.properties, instead of defining this hard-coded value, I want to replace this with some dynamic value which is coming from the environment variables. What we can do is simply we can replace this with the value which is coming from environment variables. I have defined this max users in the environment variables. I will show you. So max users, this value is 2000. Now I will get the value as 2000 for max users. What I can do in the environment, I already have that, right? So I will remove everything here. So this one I want to display. Run it. Yes, I am getting the 2000 value, right? This is coming from where? Environment variables. So this is what? This is the beauty of this syntax. Okay, this is very helpful. This you will commonly see in microservices where we are using Spring Boot property files in application.properties file. Wherever you see this kind of syntax, you commonly see. This is very popular. We commonly use it because we don't want to hard code these values here. That's why we take these values from other property files. Okay. Yes. So I think we covered everything. So we understood the 4 kinds of property sources, and we understood using @property source annotation we can load the properties files and we can access them. This is a special syntax, and also we understood we can combine these property files like this, and we also saw how we can inject those values using @value and using environment object, right? Yes, congratulations. Today you learned a very valuable concept. Okay. So this is the last thing we have to discuss. We discussed. Okay. Yes. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more videos. Okay. Thank you.